Hello, listeners. My name is Eileen Durfee from Creatrix Solutions, and I'm here with a special guest today, Dr. Neal Stumpf. And I met him years ago when he was working with Dr. Scherger. Now, I talk a lot about Dr. Scherger and the things he's done for me with spinal fitness. And I invited Neal to talk a little bit about his experience with Dr. Scherger. And now he's a chiropractor. When I met him, I think he was a student and learning under Dr. Scherger. And Dr. Scherger passed away in 2016. And one of my passions is to teach people about spinal fitness because of all my back pain and the history that I've been through. So without further ado, I'd like you to meet Dr. Neal Stumpf. He can tell a little bit about himself to you.
Yeah, I got interested in chiropractic after I met with Dr. Scherger. I had gone through some of his treatment plan at the time, and it was interesting, the way he kind of had an engineered model of how the spine and body should work and the forces that were placed on the body. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting at the time. Yep.
Yeah, I met him in 1978. The summer of 76, I grew 9 inches in 3 months. I was in constant pain before a car ran me over when I was in a parking lot. And then, I could just hardly breathe, couldn't lift my arms. I've been to, neurologists and all this other stuff. And an old chiropractor named Leon Inch said, "Oh, you've got to go see Dr. Scherger. He can rehabilitate you with exercises." And that was before he came up with the power cushion. But he would have you stand up and do a pelvic tilt. And he had you do some rotations and then lay over specially rolled towels so that your muscles could relax. And so lo and behold, I got restored function, got out of pain, and, we became friends for years until he moved from Pasco down to where you're at and when you met him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know that he worked with the Olympic team in Colorado and then with Ron O'Neill from the New England Patriots and Smitty from York Barbell, trying to figure out about this shape. Why did it give you, the advantage? So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Dr. Scherger? Were you involved in that at all, or were you later? Because I know he worked with the state of Washington and got the National Strength and Conditioning Association peer review approved. So he offered continuing education credits for professionals. So tell us where you kind of interjected in that timeline.
Yeah, so I came in for the most part, it was a little bit more afterwards when he was kind of more retired and slowing down a little bit. But what we were working on at the time was kind of improvement of his, I suppose, lecture material as far as make it more accessible. So for a lot of what we were doing was to work on kind of a lecture presentation that could be given a little more easily there. Yeah.
Right.
And by that time, he had already developed the power cushion and the power equipment, I think. So that was already in use at that time.
Yeah, it's a strange concept, actually. Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense now that I've really studied it and experienced it. But for even common chiropractors, they're not really trained in spinal biomechanics and how to give somebody that S-shaped curve.
Yeah, it's not quite as understood throughout the industry, I think, whether it's the chiropractors or the physical therapist either.
Right. Now, I just gave a demonstration because I've got the new power cushion. It has a slanted edge for your forearms to rest on. It's got a textured bottom. The groove goes down further so a shorter person can still get where the spinals will float and catch those transverse process. and where the neck piece will attach onto it instead of having to balance a towel on top of it. And there's this guy that he was a prior athlete. He had 2 torn hamstrings and a quad muscle, and the guy could just barely bend over. So I did the evaluation that Dr. Scherger came up with, to fill your hamstrings, to bend over, to jump, to, turn your head, put your arms up, all that kind of stuff. And every single person before this guy, I'd always get 2, 4, 6, one guy 11 inches of reach just in one set of exercises. I mean, that's like 5 to 10 reps of the sit up, the pelvic tilt, and the neck flexion, and we're getting that. This guy, of course, I didn't put weight on him at the time. So then afterwards, what just came in the mail was my force applicators that just clamp onto an ordinary barbell. So we had him try that. And when we got the force on him on the sit up, he gained like 3 inches when he bent over. He was just like amazed. So this leverage where you're putting force on top of the body and then your muscles, the pulling, the direction of pull with the muscles, like Dr. Scherger used to talk about, does something special to the bones. Can you maybe explain that? Because I know you wrote the lecture materials of trying to have people understand this concept.
Yeah, a lot of it is, I suppose it helps to reflexively relax the muscles when they're in the proper position, as it takes strain off the body overall. Yeah, so when your body doesn't have quite the correct S-shaped curvature, the curves aren't quite as deep as they ought to be. They're, in addition to the stiffness you have just from being in that position, you'll have the muscles are kind of contracting, and in order to maintain stability in that area, for instance, to keep the body from falling over, keep your posture upright. But when they're contracted like this, you're losing your ability to move as well, because they've got to maintain that position rather than contributing to active movement.
So I was reading in some of the materials about how, because you can't change the muscle attachments to bones.
Yeah.
So when they aren't in that shape, like you said, they're contracting. But like when you go, your stride length, for instance, can't be as long. It'll land, your leg will land prematurely. And then about the fast muscle twitch recruitment. So you're not going to jump as high. You're not going to run as fast. So if you can explain a little bit more about that to us.
Yeah, so about those, the muscle contribution to the area. Yeah, basically, when Dr. Scherger had the idea, and then from his engineering, that there are groups of muscles that should be doing the postural work, and these are the shorter twitch muscles that do long-term contractions, whereas the fast twitch muscles should be reserved for the active movement. But he found that when the posture was too head forward, too straight, without these curvatures, that the fast twitch muscles would convert over into the slower twitch. And so this is a problem for you, since you don't have them available for active movement, and it resulted in less sports performance. For instance, that was kind of his metric there that he was using a lot of the time, was basically the performance. This is the football performance and such, how hard people can hit, how long they could stay in the game, things like this, their endurance and such.
Right. Now, he also talked about this teeter-totter effect. I mean, to justify mathematically, why is the S-shaped posture? I mean, I bought a full-size mannequin and tried, a skeleton, and tried to bend it into correct posture, and it's impossible. None of the spinal, models out there display ideal curvature. So it's like so unknown.
Well, yeah, they don't really take that into account with the models there.
I know when you worked with him, part of the passive home maintenance that he would have people do would be to take a bath towel and roll it in, to fold it in half and then roll it in, so there was a space in between there, so that spinous could be in there, but the edges of the transverse process would be supported so that you'd lay down and, the muscles could relax then. So can you explain about that twisting and how that really therapeutically worked for people?
In regards to the towel rolls?
Yeah, and letting that spinous float and for just the maintenance.
The concern was that so I suppose you could do some of these towel roll exercises without that center spot, which most chiropractors would be doing that. But if you don't have that center spot in there, the spinous will lay right onto it, and there's concern that it would cause a rotation into the neck or the back, whichever you're doing at the time, but as well as uneven pressure on it. So having that little, I guess the soft spot, the edge in there, that will let the spinous rest, and then you have the joint supported by the pillars of the neck and the back.
Right. So one of the things that Dr. Scherger always talked about is having a neck cushion with the groove to attach to the power cushion. And he gave me, like, he had these wooden things with like a groove so that you could have the vertebrae float. So what I did is I made these cushions that are the soft, kind of squishy, but they're a lot firmer than a towel. But so the spinous can float here. Yep. And so I actually used my 3D printer and printed molds, and then I poured foam ones for prototypes initially. So I tried all these different diameters, and just the general population, I found like you needed to go from 2 3/4 up to the 3 3/4, and then go in half-inch increments in between, and then have the different densities. And the difference that I noticed in these rolls from the towels, and I don't know, I sent you some cushions to try. I don't know if you've done the back twist and laid over them yet, but
yeah, we've been relying on them. They work well. Yeah, they hold together better than the towels did. They always had the issue of unrolling, basically. Always come apart on you.
I mean, I used to use rubber bands on the ends and everything. But after I find, after I get the set that I'm really comfortable with, then I'll like go up a diameter or up a density. But when I'm laying there, I literally hear my bones move. And I went and did a demo with Dr. Adam Evans. He's a chiropractor here that I go to. He does some Pedibond moves as well, which is, what I like. So he just came back, his whole family on these things, and all their bones are moving, just laying there relaxing. He's just totally blown away, with the equipment, to encourage that curvature. And so now about the pelvic tilt and the guides, that you wrote and explained. I know that the pelvic tilt is more segmental posture correction. Can you explain that to us?
So the pelvic tilt, we were doing that after the sit-up exercises on the power cushion, and the point of that was to set the last vertebrae as well as the pelvis into alignment there. When I was working with Dr. Scherger, he was telling me more that the sit-up exercise is real good for the back, but potentially while doing that exercise, there was concern that the pelvis would slip out of alignment with the rest of the back. And this would help and when you do the pelvic tilt after with the weight, it helps to set it back against the spine there.
When I'm exercising, I feel best when I do the sit-up first. I didn't know the order in which we were supposed to be doing that. So, and for the reason. So that's great. I know he would have people do the neck flexion, just with their hands. Years ago, we used to have an old catcher's mask. That catcher's mask would, when you put pressure on it, would be flattening your nose, and it was so uncomfortable. And so, I came up with the neck shaper, which has got these cushion pads, He had something similar to this that attached on the weight stack machine. So I basically took his distance and shape of where your chin and your forehead pad is. So I'd still have the mathematical, distance. So that way we could do it standing up, and I put it as a 1-inch bar so you can put, weights on here, but this actually clamps onto an ordinary barbell. And so this, with forward head posture, when my little exercise monitor says drink water and get up and move around, and I've been at my desk, and I just whip out some of these to reverse that gravity,
Yep.
And I know Dr. Scherger taught doing this also standing up, and you could see how your low back curve would actually increase. So I don't know if you want to talk about the muscles or what it's actually doing when you do the neck flexion.
Well, I suppose more with once you've got your neck when you get the flexion exercise, once you've got your neck in the reversed portion where you pull it back, that it basically gives you the maximum neck curvature that you'll have at the time there. So that when you're in that position, if you feel your neck, you should feel that although you're working, your neck muscles in the back are actually relaxed. And this is again because they're not having to work in that position, which they normally shouldn't be postural muscles necessarily. They should be there for movement. But additionally, when you're in that position, if you look at your back muscles, you'll find that they should be relaxed as well. If you're able to kind of get your center of gravity back far enough to where those movement muscles can relax, and these would be the paraspinals right next to the spine in the back and the neck as well. But yes, so that was one of the big demonstrated changes that you could have is when you're standing up and doing this especially. You can put the hands on the back, you'll feel it totally relax. And often this will cut back on back pain because they're the muscles that contribute so much to that. Yeah, so those paraspinal support muscles, yeah.
Right. Well, for years I had such rounded shoulders and, being so tall and everything, it's like, put your shoulders back. After I really started, so I've known about this for how many years, but how dedicated have I been to these exercises? Not so dedicated, but so now that I've really been working on all of my exercises, my spinal fitness exercises, I've noticed that if I feel like I'm slumping or anything, just going like that to get my head over my pelvis so it's more centered, my shoulders automatically go back, and then my back muscles relax. So it's really a whole different mentality for posture. Have you seen a lot of these functional patterns where they're taking people with scoliosis and just these different forward head postures, but they're getting them more to neutral? They're not like training them to get the S-shaped curve, but they are reducing pain. And I know
within the chiropractic practice, I suppose much of the field has gone towards just kind of improving motion, which will reduce pain. This is helpful. I mean, just get the motion going, but they somewhat drifted away from improving posture and position. Yeah, there's not quite as much a focus on that as there used to be in the past.
Right.
Yeah. So it's and I suppose to some degree, this is that there hasn't really been the tools available. Dr. Scherger has really spent a lot of time in investing in that to have the power cushion and even the neck towels. So yeah, there's without these kind of tools available, it's actually fairly difficult to improve posture. I mean, like for instance, you can adjust the neck; it'll move, and if you can get it to hold that, it'll help out some. But it's difficult to when people go back to doing their daily lives, doing the computer work and the phones and such now, it's difficult to get it to stick. Whereas if you can give them something to take home, even the towel roll, but the better formed rolls that we have now, you can get it to stick a lot better. You see much more of an impact over time.
Right. So now it's like getting people back to the same thing that Dr. Scherger had, because he worked on this. He had the power cushion in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And, the New England Patriots had it.
Mhm.
And then trainers went from there to the New York Giants, the Jets, the Dallas Cowboys. But it's like they didn't want their competition having the best widget that would give them, any advantage over them. And so it was just kind of like Dr. Scherger was more of a mad scientist. He
Mhm.
just loved, the math and proving all of that. But it just never really took off. Now,
Yeah.
what about the people at the National Strength and Conditioning Association? Are there any of those people around who really understood Dr. Scherger's science? Do you know of any of the guys there that
I haven't been so much in touch with them. We've talked a little bit with some of the Olympic team there as well, and they used it, but my understanding was they had trouble getting the higher ups to kind of really invest much more in this, so they kind of used it on their own personal basis for their own teams, but not necessarily. It didn't get necessarily throughout the whole Olympic
right,
organization.
right.
Yeah, it was always hard to push, and there were, I guess, everywhere there were kind of agendas that hard to get the people to change. Even the military, I think he had trouble with them too. Like he would have, I guess he had members of special forces come through and such, Marines and everyone else, but they wouldn't. They get better and then wouldn't tell anybody because they couldn't report that they had an injury, otherwise they'd be taken off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they would just keep themselves in shape, but they couldn't necessarily report this to anyone else in the command structure.
Right. Well, I know he also talked a lot about astronauts because of lack of gravity and being able to use this equipment. Because you always see the astronauts when they're getting ready to fly away. You see the pod land in the ocean, but you never see the astronaut because they're like carrying off
Yeah,
in stretchers because they have no posture.
yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, so NASA brought this up a little bit when we were looking around. They actually had some articles in their research into this. It turns out without gravity, you do lose the curvatures fairly quickly. Yeah, without the force of gravity on the body, and of course,
Right.
it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you need the curvatures because of gravity, but you wear out over time as well.
So, yeah, I've really noticed a difference. I try to do my exercises like at least 3 days a week. Now, what would you
Mhm.
say would be the ideal routine for someone who's kind of like an ordinary worker that, is basically letting gravity beat on him because of, working at a desk or doing repetitive motions or stuff like that? Uh, what kind of program would you put someone on that, would come to see you?
Well, if they were willing to invest in it, to have them do a little more, maybe perhaps every day to start with.
Right.
Um, but people have trouble doing exercise. If you can, yeah, people have trouble keeping up with these exercise programs. The interesting thing with this was, though, it worked really quick. You wouldn't have to have people on it like that frequently to get the impacts there. I mean, despite them going back to the phones and back to work again, even even once a week would you'd still see improvements with it. But
Right.
if you could get somebody that was in better health and was interested in really getting quick results, you can have them do it every day and you can get quite a ways along with that.
Right. Now, from everything I've read, Dr. Scherger would say start with 5 to 10 reps. If that was causing strain, don't do more. And then, he mentioned somewhere I read about working, 3 to 5 times a week over the course of 8 to 12 weeks, building up to 100 reps potentially of like a
Hmm.
sit up or a pelvic tilt.
Yeah, he did get a little more aggressive with it on the later years, though. It was more. Of course, he was researching, and he had to be a little careful at first. But then, he developed it. He said that he saw there weren't really a lot of problems that came with this. There weren't a lot of reactions like some other modalities may have. So
So, what was his
yeah,
last recommendation? To do these daily
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I think he went basically every day with this. He could do it more than once a day. I mean, for sit-ups and such, it's with the way the power cushion is designed, it's the idealized posture of the body. So there really isn't you wouldn't really overdo it necessarily. I mean, you could lie on the power cushion as well and get benefit from that too. Yeah, so
okay.
it won't put an excess curve in your body. It's the correct curvature that it should have been. Yeah, for for an average person.
Okay.
When you're trying to initially adopt that after having a fairly flat neck and back, though, you want to go as much as your kind of body will allow. And typically for older patients, that would you wouldn't be able to do quite as much. For instance, a weight, which was the bigger thing, was when you add weight to the body, you can't add quite as much initially, and you need a little longer time to kind of let the body adapt to it. But younger patients, maybe someone who's in high school, college, you can go very aggressive with this.
Right.
And they'll get sore, but you can go fairly aggressive, yeah, and get the quick results.
Right. I've had people like arch over the power cushion, and it's almost like you have to put a neck collar on them because they
Yeah,
can't lay back, with the weight of their head. And so it's just, I guess, starting someone where they're at and then slowly, progressing from there.
but yeah. I remember he was telling me he had well, as a comparison, he had a patient in I think their 90s that was it took about a year, but the improvement they had was they were basically able to walk up and down their stairs where they couldn't have previously, and they're much more stable. They didn't have the falls that they had in the past, which is very good. But then when I went through his program, I was able to get basically it took about I think I was able to triple my strength in about a month. I was fairly young at the time, so. But yeah,
Right.
we went up to the whole 100 pounds with the pelvic tilt after that. So I mean, yeah, even the sit up too. So it can be quick depending on how flexible somebody is and how adaptable they are to the exercises.
Right. Well, yeah, I had his first prototype robotic, the electric one that had the real
Yeah.
short range. That's what I had in the 1980s. I got that from him.
Hmm.
And so I used it until the motor burnt out. I think I lost the motor in the late 90s. And then I was without anything. Then I was like filling up like Naugahyde vinyl. I was sewing sacks and filling it with like sand. So then I could put it on my chest and I could do, the exercises that way to get some resistance.
Hmm.
And I had the blue power cushion and the black power cushion. So I had the hard, and the medium one. And
Hmm.
so I've, held on to those, and use those intermittently. And it's just made a big difference. And so going from somebody who's been in chronic pain, where other people would say you can't recover from that, to using his program. And now I'm 60 years old. And I mean, I don't have any pain in my body, even though I still go to the chiropractor like a couple times a week, not a week, a month, and, get adjusted. Cause like, if you look at x-rays of me, I don't have worn up bone edges. My discs are all good. It's just because of the years of chiropractic and, being some, I guess in recent years, I've been more consistent with these exercises, but yeah, it's just the S-shaped curve is just so important because I actually became a practitioner for hair analysis. So, looking at the adrenal and the thyroid gland for energy production. And really, everything's about energy at the cell level. And we get right down to think about it, what is robbing your body of the most energy? It's the structure. It's all these tight muscles. Everyone's like drinking down coffee and waking up fatigued. It's the number one complaint. And so if we can get people the S-shaped posture, I think there's going to be a lot of health problems that are going to improve. Of course, you being a chiropractor, you could tell us all day long about the nerves being pinched and, all that, how that translates into health issues.
Yep, yep.
Well, is there anything else that you think we should tell, the listeners about for their, to encourage them to start this program?
Suppose we haven't gone over too much on some of the benefits of adopting the S-shaped curvature. I mean, we've talked about the performance, but maybe what the performance derives from. So some of this, I suppose the basic point of it all is to minimize the force on the body, adopting this S-shaped curvature. So that's the big reason, right? Is it allows the muscles to relax because they got less to handle. It allows less wear and tear on the spine because they got less weight to take up. Yeah, less force in total. And I suppose if you're talking to maybe the average person, what sort of back shape they think they say you want to have a straight back, but kind of what does that really mean? If you're talking about literally straight, from Dr. Scherger's work, we know that puts more weight on the spine, more force on the spine. Basically, being the reason is that your back is in the back; it's not right in the center of your body. Since your spine is in the back, if it's literally straight, then you've got to use much more muscle effort to keep yourself upright. And this just translates into having more, more wear on the spine, more force there. So over time, the joints wear out quicker. The muscles just can't handle it, and they give up. They get the pain as well. They let you know that way that you can't handle it. And so you can reduce this weight by applying curvatures to the spine, the correct curvatures. Having the back curvature of the neck and the low back, and then the kyphotic curve of the mid back there, which would be the other way. And in doing this, it basically moves the center of gravity forward until it's kind of right in the middle of the body. So and when it's balanced that way, there's much less effort needed to maintain that shape. Yeah. So the postural muscles, these slower muscles, can just work to maintain that, and you have the fast twitch muscles as reserved for your activities. Yeah, so that kind of gives a lot of the strength there.
One of the things that I noticed from studying all of his literature was that when you have the S-shaped the S-shaped curves, the shear force kind of goes to where it pushes bone on bone, the facet bones,
which they take up a lot of the shear force there, which is created from having that posture. Basically, in the S-shaped curve, I suppose there's a weight gets instead of being compressed as if it were fully straight, like we talked about earlier, it gets applied to the muscles, the ligaments, and then those facet joints in the back, the bones as well. Yeah, so they'll prevent it from sliding back posteriorly, and then the ligaments will prevent it from going forward. But there's some people have some concern that having it that way, there's too much force on the facets. They some people get these spondies, I guess. But when you have the idealized back curvatures, that it's still minimized the force on the facets, even compared to having a forward posture, support on the back. Yeah,
right.
These spondies aren't quite as much of a concern if you've got these curvatures as they would be otherwise, despite the weight on them.
And then when you lose the curvature, it's like the direction of shear goes the opposite way.
Yeah, it will go forward instead of back into the bones. And in that case, you don't have the bone support. You got the ligament support instead, and they'll stretch over time. They'll get weak and they'll stretch more than they should, and this leads to, well, typically ligament injury, but you can also lead to the whole joint injury and arthritis building with excess movement in that direction, where the joint movement isn't kept tight.
Right. So yeah, and these exercises where they're creating posterior shear, it's like it's so much easier for the vertebrae to actually get dislocated, or like the ligaments, like the discs, they're like acting as a ligament right in the spine, so that they can become herniated actually much easier when you don't have the S-shaped curve.
Yeah, that was an interesting part, is that it's without looking at the joints, you'd suppose that the weight and difference might not be so much, but it's actually quite a bit. It's multiplied quite a bit over when you start losing these curvatures that absorb the force of everything. And I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think it was even as much as triple as much weight.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of information that that you did in those PowerPoint slides. And I've been working to rewrite some of those, because of copyright issues, and to being able to share this knowledge with other people. The thing that I love to do, though, is to demonstrate with people, because they might not understand all this science, but you can get them hooked on wanting to do the exercises because the results are so immediate.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you just only do 10 reps of each once, you might get 3 inches of mobility or up to 11 inches of reach increase and feel like you're taller and lighter, so doing it once isn't going to, establish those curves.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make it a habit, otherwise it doesn't stick. But what you found is that you do it once and you do get quite a benefit, because it aligns things to be the most efficient. So even if you just adopt the posture without doing the exercise, you'll still get benefit from it, because that positioning reduces the forces on the body and kind of maximizes how much you can apply as well. Like we talked about pulling your neck back, how it relaxes everything right away, because then it just doesn't have to work. So it doesn't.
Right.
So immediately you'll get the benefit.
Right. So it's just getting the body to feel comfortable in that position.
Yeah, because someone who hasn't done these exercises, someone who's fairly flexible, they can adopt the position, but they got to work a little too hard to keep it. When you put the position into the body and the spine there, then it doesn't have to work as hard, and you'll feel much more comfortable with it, and you won't give it up so easy.
Right. So this equipment is really critical, and so now that I've got a power cushion, prototypes ready, I'll be sending you some more stuff so that you can check them out and try them. And the goal is to start teaching professionals, demonstrating, getting the word out there. Maybe this is the time where people will accept it, and use it. Because I think that our physical education systems of how we're training our children, the exercises that we're having them do, we're actually limiting their ability to get this S-shaped curve. And
there's been, I guess with the advances in technology, it's kind of gone the other way a little bit. These phones have been pretty bad on the bodies.
Oh yeah, they're all like, oh man.
Yeah, more so than the computers and books were even.
Right. Well, do you have a website, or you're part of a clinic in Oregon? Do you want to give your information for the listeners? Maybe there's some listeners there locally that if they need a chiropractor, they come see you.
Yeah, so currently we're working with Accident Wellness Chiropractic. So I've been with them for a few years so far. Focused primarily on auto accidents, but we do healthcare as well.
Right. And what area are you in?
In Southeast Portland, I think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Right over there.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about some of these things. And I look forward to getting your input on some of the new equipment.
It's a big step up from some of the previous equipment we've had. I think, it's much more usable just in general. I mean, there's things to work out with it, but yeah, it's much nicer having it not flatten out on you either.
So what did you think about the backtrack?
It's different. It's good. Yeah, it really helps to set the ribs in place. It's been a problem because the easiest way to do it at home has been with a foam roller, which it is very similar to a foam roller, but you can't do both sides at the same time with a standard foam roller.
Oh yeah, for adjusting ribs.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah.
Well, when I was in San Francisco, I was on a motorized bicycle, and I was talking to my phone, not paying attention, and I was where it said no bicycles allowed, but there were people like right behind me coming up on me, and so I had to stop really fast, and I put my foot down, but there was this big well there, so my foot didn't land on anything, and I slammed right into the guardrail, right on my right rib. Of course, I'd been to the chiropractor, did craniosacral therapy, and I still could barely like put my hand like here without wincing pain. And then my prototype came on my back Trac. Of course, the hard one killed me. I couldn't even lay over it. I was so injured. So I got on the orange one that was softer, and I rolled on that. By day 2, it put all my ribs in and I had no pain at all whatsoever. And it's just like, I fell in love with this thing. This is like pretty amazing. So when do you think the best time, because we talked about doing the sit-up, pelvic tilt, then the neck flexion, when would you do this one?
Well, for someone who doesn't have an injury, I mean, you could do it with the whole set. I mean, yeah, you could do it after the sit up would be a good time to do that. And so if you want to do those 3 in order, the sit up, the back Trac, and then the pelvic tilt.
Okay.
Yeah, in a good order.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, and we'll have to when I am down that area, I'll have to come down and see you. But like I said, I'll be getting you a new power cushion with the neck attachment to it real soon.
Well, thanks. The new one looks a lot more put together than some of the previous ones.
Yeah, and the surface is smooth too, so you can clean it. Because some of the other ones, there was a lot of bubbles in the foam when they mixed it, and then the surface texture wasn't, ideal.
I mean, it was about the best at the time, but it's been a few years. Things have gotten better.
Right. Well, those were poured with what they call a mold that has a backing that had like a silicone liner. So with the silicone liners, they only produce so many parts, and then you throw them away. Or if they're sitting on the shelf, there's only so long before that material deteriorates. So what I did with these products is I paid all the extra money and had them cut out of all the molds out of aluminum. So they're forever molds. We never have to replace them. And then it produces this really nice, smooth, consistent surface. And for I don't know if you noticed it or not, but for the cushions that have the groove in them, ordinarily you could have just snapped those in half because of that shape. But inside these little holes right here, there's a wooden dowel, so nobody can break them in half. So these are going to hold up and be just fine. I suppose they don't have a UV protectant on them, so you couldn't just like leave them outdoors in the rain and the sun and and all that. But for ordinary use indoors, they'll really hold up. And now I've had some, like a 6'8" Major League Baseball pitcher, and because of the weight of his body, because he's a big guy, the blue ones didn't work for him because they would still squish. They were soft enough with all that weight to squish. So we find with the bigger people, especially the athletes, this hard works really well for them, or the medium. But so all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll talk again soon.